Right. So I'm going to call the regular scheduled virtual council meeting for the city of Elgin to order on July 7th, 2020 at 6:02 p.m. And we'll start with roll call. Let's go by ward. Jessica.
Vega here.
Gonzalez here.
Cannon here.
Arriaga
Yep.
here.
Oh, there's Susie.
Brad, go.
Jones here.
Dennis here.
All right. So verify that we have a quorum. Let the record reflect that council members Brazier, Lopez, and Pinson are absent. Do we know about Mary?
I just sent her a text. I haven't heard back from her.
Yeah, Mayor, it looks like she will be on shortly.
Okay. Can I get have a motion knowing that they won't be here? Do I entertain a motion to excuse council members Brazier and Lopez?
So moved. Dennis.
Gonzalez second.
Okay, I got a motion to excuse Brazier and Lopez, and a second by motion by Dennis and a second by Gonzalez. Other questions? All right, and we'll call for a vote for us.
Dennis, yes.
Gonzalez, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Cannon, yes.
Vega, yes.
Jones, yes.
All right, that passes unanimously. Well, it's even harder when there's not everybody here. That passes unanimously. Let the record reflect that Brazier and Lopez are excused, and Pinson will be here shortly.
I think she just got on, Mayor.
Okay. I'm only looking at active cameras, so thank you for that.
Yeah, you know I have problems.
That's all right. Let the record reflect that Councilmember Pinson entered the meeting at 6:04. And then I'll lead us in a quick invocation. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together today to do our work and the work of the citizens of Elgin. May the meeting go prompt and effective. May all voices be heard, and may the business done be in according with you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay. Public hearing. We still set it with that, Tom? Okay. Item number one. Let me go ahead and adjourn us from recess the regular. What's that?
We're ready.
Okay. Let me recess the regular meeting at 6:05 and enter into the public hearing. At the same time, item number one, a public hearing or resolution in the city of Elgin, Texas, approving a strategic partnership agreement with the Altesa Municipal Utility District and making certain findings related thereto. Has anybody signed up to speak on this public hearing?
No, Mayor.
Okay. Anything to add, Tom?
Yeah, I just want to add real quickly, this is a strategic partnership agreement that council will be considering in our next meeting. We're required to have 2 public hearings on this. If council recalls, we did a similar one with the Brixton development. This has to do with jurisdictional lines and planning review. This one's slightly different from the Brixton development in that Altesa will be, this agreement is they're doing a limited annexation of their development, which is, as you know, we have a development agreement with them for a municipal utility district, but they're doing a limited annexation to put their entire development under development review control by the city in conjunction with our development agreement. This map here you've seen before, but it illustrates the issue is The black line here this is obviously County Line Road. As we've talked about before, of course, the county line really isn't on County Line Road. This is where the Travis County, Bastrop County line cuts through. And it has just this small portion of the Altessa development that's actually within Travis County's jurisdiction. When the developers engaged Travis County and told them about our development agreement, Travis County still insisted that they would retain development review and control over the entire development, the entire 1,200 homes. We obviously already have an agreement that compels the development to come through review here. So it basically would require the development to unnecessarily go through two complete review processes. So through this strategic partnership agreement, the developer simply agreeing to annex this front portion strictly for the purposes of plat review and development control. Has no adverse effect on our development agreement, actually works in concert with that. It's a request by the developer, but before the council acts on the agreement itself, we have to have two public hearings, and so tonight's the first one on that.
All right. Well, if nobody has signed up to speak on the public hearings, council have any questions? All right, then I will adjourn the public hearing at 6:08 and enter back into the regular meeting at the said time. Do we have anybody that signed up for public comment?
We do not.
All right, that'll take us into the city manager's report. Item number 1, update on the City of Elgin coronavirus pandemic response and impacts. Tom, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to give council an opportunity to, we've briefed council on this before and discussed it a little bit in our call meeting last week, but this is mainly for an opportunity to get any input or ask any questions about where we're at. As the council knows, we actually took kind of like everybody else, tried to work towards a reopening, but we were forced to, conditions forced us to kind of take a step back from where we were. And we've gone back to basically closing all the public business, all the public buildings for routine business close to the general public. One difference in what before is we're maintaining full staffing and full services in that way, but we've asked people to not come into the building. We're making sure that we respect all social distancing protocols, obviously wearing face coverings, and I feel like we're doing pretty good from a service standpoint. Certainly not receiving any negative feedback. Folks are trying to work with us given the environment. We haven't had a lot of problems that way. As council knows, with our library, our parks, our rec center, the swimming pool, we continue to try to keep some of those facilities, some of those services available to the public. We're sensitive to the fact that a lot of people are getting cabin fever, and where we can make some of these facilities and services available to them on a very restricted and limited basis, we're going to continue to try to do that. One of those cases with the library, we actually had started to open the computer lab a little bit in a very restricted manner to make it available to people, but we decided we couldn't continue to do that. Although the plan is we'll try to start opening that back up next week. We're still doing our sidewalk delivery program at the library, which has been very popular with people, and a lot of people are using it. Same with the rec center, very limited controlled environment down there, but we continue to try to at least make it available for folks. We opened the swimming pool last weekend and definitely had some people there. It's very restricted, and accused Amy at not making it very fun for people, but we still did have people come and use it. Actually, I wanted Amy to comment a little bit on what we experienced over the weekend down at the pool. Amy, you there?
Yes. Hello, everybody. While it is limited in order to manage things and keep everybody as safe in this current situation, we did have patrons throughout the weekend. They signed up online for their advance reservations. They can reserve a lane for their household, which is typically geared towards 4 people or less. But overall, we've got trying to keep a maximum of 20 people at the pool or less. And they've got 60 minutes, for their lane. The lanes are actually, it's surprisingly large. Our pool is, when you divide it into 3 lanes, you end up with a lot of space for your household. So the staff's done a great job of managing everything, overall sanitizing of the common touch surfaces that we still have. And we are asking folks to wear their face coverings if they're on the pool deck. And it was a very successful weekend from that participation standpoint. It's gone really well.
Thanks, Amy. And then the parks are another thing that we've talked about before with council, that we continue to strive to walk the line between a safe environment, but not closing off our parks in their entirety. We're allowing the people to use the grounds so long as they're wearing face coverings and in compliance with current regulations. Playground equipment, the pavilions, the sports courts are available for general use, but at the user's risk. And as long as we don't see gatherings or problems that way, we'll continue to do that. We haven't experienced that. We've seen those facilities be used, but be used in a way that's generally consistent with the social distancing protocols. And then this is the list of basic issues that we're continuing to employ with our staff. We would stress with them in these times. It's really important, we think, from a leadership standpoint, that city operations and staff set the right example for the community. So we're trying to be, we continue to be very disciplined, and we're going to continue to do that moving forward. So when we issued this report a week ago or so, we kind of artificially set a date of July 10th, which would be the end of this week, to review and maybe reconsider some things. Personally, I doubt that today. I doubt that we're going to change many of these practices, but we'll continue to monitor the situation. And obviously, we're not in the same situation in a private business, but we want to be open for business as soon as we can do that safely. And so we'll continue to monitor those things and get back to whatever the new normal will be as soon as possible. That's all I have on that, Mayor, unless anybody has any questions or comments.
No.
Gonna keep going.
Okay. Just keep on rolling through the manager's report.
Next is we need it's basically a formality relative to our upcoming CDBG block grant program or application. We've had a citizen participation plan in the past, but it's been a while since we've reviewed that for council. So we really need to just speak to this quickly and have council endorse that moving forward. But I'll let Amy, are you going to intro this, or
yes,
we'll take it from there?
Hello, everybody. So we have a grant consulting firm assisting us with this program and this application. It's GrantWorks. And so we have Kelly Odom with us virtually, and she is going to give a very quick overview of the plan and why we have this in place. So on Kelly's part, you can just give us a quick update.
Okay. Hello, Council. My name is Kelly Odom, and I'm with GrantWorks. The CDBG funds do come from HUD Washington, and HUD requires the city to have in place the Citizens Participation Plan and grievance procedures, and that's the Form A-1013. This policy basically enacts procedures for encouraging public participation and for citizens to file complaints or grievances regarding services provided in the community's Texas CDBG project. And since your community has a certain percentage of non-English, then the procedures are also printed and publicized in Spanish. So the A-1013 form just outlines the instructions. So on page 1, you'll see the complaint procedures, step-by-step instructions for that. And on the second page, you have the public hearing provisions in place. So basically, we're just required to let the public know what's going on before we turn in the application, having public hearings, advertising the public hearing in the paper, throughout the grant. We let the public know what's going on. 5 days before the application is turned in, it's available for review at City Hall. After the grant is closed out, we have a final public hearing that we inform the public, look, we did exactly what we told you we're going to do, and now we have, a finished project downtown that you can come and enjoy. So that's basically what this form is, and you're just required to do it in order to apply for the grants.
Okay, thank you, Kelly.
So Amy, do we need the council to vote on that, or is just saying that out loud enough at this point?
We would need a motion to approve it.
I think the council knows this, again, this is a formality. I think the council knows that the city has a strong history and welcoming input on any of our block grant applications, and there'll be repeated opportunities for people to weigh in on that. So, but Mayor, I guess we need a voice motion and voice vote just to approve that plan moving forward.
Questions before we vote, council? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the participation plan proceeding for the CDBG block grant.
So moved. Jessica.
Second.
Got a motion. Okay, I got a motion by Vega, a second by Pinson.
Yep.
No other questions? Then we'll call for a vote. Jessica?
Vega, yes.
Jones, yes.
Dennis, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Gonzalez, yes.
Cannon, yes.
Benson, yes.
All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Ms. Odom. On to item number 3, consider new boundaries for the Main Street area. Tom, Amy?
Yeah, this is Amy too.
Great.
She wouldn't trust me to talk about this, so I'll let her do it.
Well, so on our part, Elgin has been a Texas Main Street city for 30 years. This is a big anniversary this year, 2020. We started in 1990. And in that time, the area, you've got a map in your packet, the area that has been our kind of targeted, focused area for redevelopment that we've, tracked reinvestment and partnered with the Texas Historic Commission to get technical expertise and advice to help support property owners and business technical advice for business owners. It's largely been the area outlined in red on the map. And tonight, the Main Street Board has been reviewing as the district has essentially kind of really revitalized here in the last 6 years. We've had so many buildings finish their renovation work, really phenomenal overall business investment and business occupancy. And so we're looking at the new opportunities, areas that weren't a focus in the past because of the need to be so focused on that initial area. And so the cotton oil mill should be at the top of your map there. That's to the, I guess, to the east of the railroad tracks, which was the border for the edge of the district. And we have a new developer that has purchased that property. There's significant level of interest and planning going on towards that revitalization. So the board has recommended that that area be officially included. And then on the far kind of, I guess, western side of the district, there from Avenue B over to the edge of the Elgin Railroad Ranch property. We have some new reinvestment happening there and would like to be able to include that area as well. The main thing that this would do for the community is that it makes this overall area, whatever we declare as the Main Street area, is then eligible for some special funding for grants. In particular, this Texas Capital Fund grant that we have just been talking about tonight, that's a Main Street area program grant. So we can only do projects that are within the Main Street area for that particular grant. And then it also helps, guide your overall continued revitalization efforts and support the new investment that would be happening in those areas in addition to the existing area. We've reviewed all of this with the Texas Historic Commission, their Main Street office, and they're aware of our plans to add to the Main Street area. And they were very supportive of that and agreed that it would be a good next step for the program. And so if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer that.
Amy, there's no downside for any property owner, no adverse impact. This won't add any cost by itself. This is only,
No. And this
it'll
does
only be
not-
something good.
Right, it does not, this is not the historic district. The historic district is a different geographic area defined in an official city ordinance and has very specific boundaries. The red area is the historic district. And so these areas that's a whole separate consideration. And they would not have, it's not regulatory. This is very much just to promote and support overall redevelopment and continued revitalization in the downtown area.
Thank you. And do we need a vote on this as well?
Yes.
So essentially, we're adding the oil mill areas and depot west of Avenue B, right?
Right, Central Avenue west of Avenue B.
And yeah, depot's sort of in there.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm surprised that wasn't already in there. I guess I missed that. I kind of feel old. I remember the 20-year anniversary of the Main Street program. Didn't think I'd be around this long. C30. Okay, is it staff got any, council got any questions? No, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the new proposed boundaries for the Main Street area.
Dennis, so moves.
Vega second.
Okay, got a motion by Dennis and a second by Vega. Other questions? All right, we'll go for a vote, please.
Dennis, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Gonzalez, yes.
Karen, yes.
Benson, yes.
Vega, yes.
Jones, yes.
All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Thank you, Amy. And that'll move us on to departmental reports. Tom?
Mayor, that's all, Mayor, unless I don't have anything else on the departmental reports or general report, unless anybody has any questions for me about anything else.
Questions for departmental reports, council? How about general activity reports? Anybody? Oh, yeah, there's a football game on tonight. All right, on to the consent agenda item. Consent agenda. We have one item, which would be the virtual meetings minutes of June 16th. Has anybody reviewed those or have any changes to edits to make? All right, then I'll entertain.
They looked okay.
Okay, then I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda item as a whole.
So move, Mary. Oh, Benson.
Second, Dennis.
We've got a motion by Councilmember Pinson, a second by Councilmember Dennis. Any other questions? All right, then I'll call for a vote. Mary?
Benson, yes.
Maybe yes.
Jones, yes.
Dennis, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Gonzalez, yes.
Gannon, yes. And that passes unanimously. Thank you, council. All right, on to new business. Item number 1, discussion only item. An ordinance granting a specific use permit for a medical facility use at the property located at 902 West 2nd Street in A18 Burleson, Jonathan Acres, 17.8900 high school, being approximately 1789 acres.
Yes, that means
Is that right?
17 out of 80. So I think that means 17 out of 89.
Okay, all right, good. That made more sense. City of Elgin, Bastrop County, Texas, and providing for a savings clause and repealing conflicting ordinances and resolutions. Tom, you want to give the background on this?
Thank you, Mayor. This is actually a unique item for us in the sense that it's a routine item, but with some unique circumstances that were affected by our COVID environment that we're in right now. The school district has a project that they're looking to place a new home for the health clinic there on their property off 10th Street, where I forget what everybody calls that school. Kristen, you go to high school there. What's it called now?
Yeah, Flex Campus these days.
Flex Campus, and where the bus barn is. But they've gone through the process that this project had been planned for a while, but timing caught up the school district, and they wanted to move quickly in order to have this facility available and the new facility open by the start of school. We started through that process, and they got through the planning commission. I should back up and say a special use permit, a specific use permit under our code is comparable to a zoning change. So you have to follow the same legislative process as you do a zoning change, which is a very deliberate process that includes proper notice and public hearings. Got this project through the planning commission at that time, then this issue needs to come before council and for public hearing and final action. And well, we had to advertise the public hearing in time to have, and we thought we were on schedule to have that ready for this meeting. Unfortunately, as council knows, a month ago when we did the advertising, we were hopeful and planning that this meeting would have been in person. And so that's exactly what the notice said when we published it in the paper. I was a little surprised to learn, but when we reviewed this with the city attorney, they decided that the fact that the notice said it would be in person, but now the meeting is virtual, that was a fatal flaw in that posting. So we have to redo it. So what that means is that this has jammed up the school district on their time frame, but we're going to have to wait legislatively until our meeting next in August to August 4th, I think is the date, to get this scheduled properly on the agenda, to give proper notice so we can have the final public hearing required of the city council for the council to approve the specific use permit. Until the council approves that specific use permit, however, staff cannot issue a building permit or authorize proceeding with any construction on this project for it to move forward. However, considering all these circumstances, what we've discussed with the school district was that simply because they have already or very close to submitting all the technical paperwork that would be required to get a building permit to move forward with the project, and we'll basically just be waiting for the meeting to roll around in August so council can vote on this. We can't authorize them to continue. We can't issue building permits. We can't do inspections without a building permit. But what our compromise is that we'd allow them to, at their own risk, go ahead and start the project, and we wouldn't issue a stop order, a stop construction order. So they could get started, and then the process would just catch up to them in August. This is an unusual approach. We often let the more typical use of this is often our residential developers or even commercial developments. If we're all in agreement on the technical aspects and all we're doing is waiting for a vote from the planning commission or council, we'll let developers start doing site work before and not stop them. They're not authorized. They do it at their own risk. Theoretically, if something happens at the meeting to change the approval of that plan, then they're the ones that would have to accommodate that change. But when you get in a situation like this, there's no real reason to think anything will change from a construction aspect other than whether or not the council is going to approve the specific use permit. So what we're proposing this evening, why we have it on the agenda tonight, is to demonstrate some sensitivity and support for the school district situation and trying to help them meet their schedule. I thought we could put it on the agenda tonight, and if council had any questions or concerns or issues with what's being proposed, there'll be no vote by the council tonight, but if everybody could just express any concerns they have, then the school district can make their own assessment from that of whether or not they want to proceed or whether or not they want to wait for the August 4th meeting. So real quickly, this is, as we said earlier, the Flex campus. The X doesn't, it's usually supposed to mark the spot, but it does in this case. This is the location of the property. You've seen this map is in your meeting packet. This is the specific location of the building. Another part about this that we're comfortable with allowing this compromise to move forward is this isn't, it's not going to be a stick-built building where there will be a lot of inspection required in normal construction. It's a modular building that'll be moved in, and even though it'll be in place, we don't think we have any concerns about inspecting it after the fact and being able to see everything that we need to see from an inspection standpoint. So that's basically the rundown of the scenario with us tonight. Mayor, I'd like David Harrell, the planning director, he'll brief you on what happened at the planning commission. We did get a couple of public comments, and in response to those public comments, the plan commission recommended a couple of amendments, but I'll let David speak to that. David.
Thank you, Mr. Mattis. Yes, the Planning and Zoning Commission at their June 22nd meeting did recommend approval of this item with the following conditions, and it was a unanimous approval. Number one, the use would only operate from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday only. No parking signs to be placed on roadway in front of the school. And the site plan that's currently with your packets has a number of spaces there. It's 177 spaces, and the proposal was for 155 spaces. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended that of all the uses on that site that use 155 spaces, they wanted that total usage to reflect the number of spaces provided at 177. And that was the conditions put forth by the Planning and Zoning Commission that you would need to bring forward as the council should you so see fit. And that concludes my comments as well. Be aware that the citizens that wrote in for the Planning and Zoning Commission item is also included within your packet, and that concludes everything I need to say, Mr. Mayor, Mr. City Manager. Thank you.
David, just to be clear, the parking spaces you're talking about is for the entire school site, correct?
Correct.
That count, 177. And that's
Correct.
what's delineated on the map. We got 2 letters that are in the packet from citizens. You did receive 1 extra letter today, but it didn't make it in time for the packet, but we'll be sharing that with council. But it was a letter from, a second letter from one of the individuals that had written in before, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And all those conditions were acceptable to the school or to the health clinic, right?
We have not heard any opposition from the applicant, who's a representative of the district.
Well, we'll let them speak to that. Mayor, if you want me to keep going, that we got a few people here representing the school district, but I think Gary Davenport is going to speak. Is that right, Gary? Or do you have anything to add that we haven't covered?
No, I can answer any questions at this time. I'd just like to add maybe a couple of sentences for clarity, if that'd be all right.
Yeah,
Sure.
go ahead.
So I'm Gary Davenport. I'm the architect with Ramtech Building Systems and representing Central Health Community Services. And Rafael De La Paz is on the line as well if we need to have any questions from him answered. Essentially, the building that we're proposing that's on the screen right now is replacing 2 classrooms that were there before. So it's not a function of us taking additional land that didn't have a previous use. The parking lot spaces we're providing are 7 for our facility. The facility was existing, as Mr. Mattis had said before, the operation has been existing inside the school. And because the school has needs for using that space, it's being transitioned into this building, this brand new structure that is located on the site. And we have no challenges with putting the no parking signs up, so no one's parking on the street. And also the people that we have in the operation currently are just transitioning. They're just getting a little bit more space. They're essentially falling over each other right now. They're very cramped space. So they're just needing a little bit more space to provide these services, continue providing these services to the community. So that was it.
Mayor, I don't know if Jody was going to try to join us. I don't know if she's on. She had another meeting, a conflict.
That's okay.
Anybody
I'm
from the
pretty
district?
From a as far as I think half of this council went to school, went to high school on this campus, but the buildings that it's replacing were 2 former classrooms. I think they were basically vacant portable trailers. So as long as the school, I assume we would have heard it. I mean, it's their plan essentially. So as long as they're okay with the parking, the functionality of that building, my questions would all be answered. And I believe all parties understand where we're at. And if council doesn't, as far as I will have to come bring this back, right? Because of the posting issues.
Yeah, man, there no vote tonight. It's not ripe for action this evening.
Right.
But we're just trying to see if we can give, if there are any big concerns about this, it'd be better if we identify those for the school now than later. I would say, I guess now that you say it, I don't know that we asked the question directly to school officials, but every part of this project working through, the school's been working hand in hand with Gary and the folks at the clinic. So yeah, I guess I'm assuming they're in agreement. They're knowledgeable of these conditions and they're in agreement with everything that's being discussed so far.
Mr. Mattis, this is Peter Perez with Elgin ISD Deputy Superintendent. I'm here on behalf of the district. I just wanted to make sure that the council understood that we have planned and been in hand with the planning with the clinic to make sure that we're working in tandem as we move forward with this project. So yes, we are in agreement with the building, with the parking and those items. We think it's a good partnership. They've had existing use of our building in the Flex campus, which soon to become the intermediate campus, and the space where they were located inside the main building is going to be repurposed for classrooms. And so the space near the outside on the 10th Street, I believe, is going to be used for the building. So yes, we've been working hand in hand with the clinic and the builder.
Thanks.
Okay. And that intermediate, that'll be 5th and 6th, 4th and 5th?
Yes, sir. That is correct. Will existing 5th graders and 6th graders be moving there? Yes, sir.
So none of the students are driving to school, so that'll most of that part, there should be sufficient parking for all those uses, I would think.
Yes, sir. No one, 5th and 6th graders should not be driving to school. No, sir.
There you go. All right. Questions, council?
I've got some, Mayor.
Yep.
Gonzalez. In the specific use application, it states, and I quote, "The specific use will provide much needed medical exam, minor procedures, dentistry, vaccination, and medical provider services," on and on. What are medical provider services?
Raphael, you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure thing. And so, and actually, if I can give just a little bit of context to it. So really the service that we're providing is just primary health services. Those are sick visits, preventative visits, dental services, behavioral health services as well. From women's health services to include OBGYN, pediatrics, of course, immunization, sports physicals, and also laboratory services. And if you allow me, Mayor, if I can just kind of share a little bit of background of kind of our clinic and in the past few years that we've been there. So in 2014, we were approached for this opportunity by the Elgin ISD leadership. There was an FQHC that was there before. So we're an FQ, or Fairly Qualified Health Center, also known as a community health center. And so we're a nonprofit organization. And there was a FQ that was in the Flex campus seeing patients, but due to unforeseen circumstances, they had to terminate services at that time. In September of 2014, we partnered with Blue Bonnet Trails Community Services, the local mental health authority, to begin providing medical and mental health services to the Elgin community. And since opening our doors in 2014, we served nearly 5,000 unduplicated patients and have generated over 23,000 visits. It's important to note that a little bit over 77% of these patients are either uninsured or underinsured. And what we've seen since being there, the demand for services has grown year after year. And we anticipate, especially what we're seeing right now with this pandemic, when we're seeing individuals lose their jobs and also their healthcare benefits, that we'll see a huge demand for our services. And so definitely this opportunity has given us, a chance to move from a 2,600 square foot space to now nearly 6,500 square feet building that would allow us to serve our patients more efficiently. Right now, as it is, there are certain days that we have 3 medical providers sharing one office and 4 exam rooms, which of course makes it very difficult to have an efficient workflow. And so, back I would say 3 years ago, we started seeing that this demand of services was just increasing rapidly. And so what we did, we went out and reached out to the St. Dave's Foundation out of Austin. And that's who's actually providing the funding for this new building. And so we're definitely excited to be able to have this chance to carry out our mission and continue to serve the Elgin community in this new facility.
Could you give some examples of what medical provider services are?
So sick visits. Right now we're providing televideo services, and that's someone that has diabetes, hypertension, someone that is coming in for flu, COVID-19. We're doing some of the testing. I think out of our patient population, a little bit over 38 patients, or I think 38 patients we've reported positive. So there's woman exams that I can think of, just sick visits. I think that's our majority, and of course, chronic care management. Our CMO, Chief Medical Officer, is also on the line, Dr. Deborah Irwin, that's also served this committee if she wants to add and get into specifics.
Yes, sir.
So-
Let me just tell you, it's well child visits with their immunizations, trying to help get these kids ready for school. Sports physicals before they start doing sports in the fall, hopefully. We have an OB who comes in and she's providing the only OB care in this county at this point in time. We're hoping that's going to also increase with the increased amount of space. She also provides gynecological services. She'll be doing things like colposcopies and leaps for those who have abnormal pap smears, providing, and again, as he said, the chronic care needs for the diabetics, hypertensives, all of those kinds of things. The COVID patients that we've identified as positive, then of course we follow through with them as they're going through their illness, and then we help to get them cleared so that they can return to work.
That answer your question, Juan?
Yeah, and I wanted to make one comment. Mr. Robert Allen had some very valid points. And of course, the one that stuck out to me was that traffic on 10th Street. And it's also going to be, I guess, on Robin Road coming off of 11th Street from 290 in front of the Lutheran church there. You know, there's going to be a lot more traffic. And I hope that the school district would also, you know, try to help us whenever that does happen, not just leave it up to the city. That's
okay. Yeah, I understand what. Does anybody have anything else to comment on that?
If I may, Mayor, I can address some of that. One of the things we're looking at as we open up the Flex campus to become an intermediate is we're working in tandem with the clinic to do everything we can to minimize traffic. One of the restrictions or one of the requirements we had was time of operation. So if the council could give us some flexibility in working with the clinic to make sure we have some flexibility in what time we start and close the clinic, I think we could help with minimizing the traffic around that area. So wanted to have that as a consideration too. So just a consideration. Thank y'all.
Mayor, what kind of flexibility are you talking about, sir? How would you change from 8 to 5 Monday through Friday?
Well, depending, so when we have kid drop off and when we have kid pickup in the afternoon and the morning, if we could maybe change the start time of the clinic or the closing time of the clinic, give us some flexibility there so we could minimize traffic and maybe not have it so at the same time that we're having school kids being dropped off for school or being picked up. So that's just the flexibility there, sir.
Right. So, but I mean, kids are picked up at 3 or 4 or something like that, not at 5 p.m. So what would you suggest? I mean, what's off the top of your head right now? What times?
Well, right now I would have to work with the clinic and get some times, sir, but I don't have any specific detail right now on the times that we would be working with, but just having that flexibility to do that if the council so moves.
There will be some pickup at 5, as late as 5 and 6 p.m., right? Like the
Yes,
after school programs?
We would have after school programming with ACE. Yes, sir. That's a fact. We have our ACE program that runs till about 5:45 Monday through Thursday.
You know, that Mayor, I'd like to just say that that'd be okay, maybe changing that, but we wouldn't want anything like 6 to 6 p.m., 12 hours for that neighborhood for traffic to be going through there like that.
Oh, no, sir. That's not the intent of the change. It's more or less trying to minimize the traffic around the area to provide a coordination between the clinic, start time of school, so we can maximize or minimize the traffic around the area.
Okay.
Mayor, if I could just clarify one point on that, Peter, too. It's, if I understand it right, David, the recommendation for approval from the Plan Commission included that condition of Operation 8 to 5 expressly to deal with traffic congestion. It was their idea that limiting it to those hours would help that situation, help reduce traffic. So I'm just saying, I don't think we're going to resolve it here tonight, but Peter, it sounds like you'll need to if you're requesting that condition not be included by the council, it sounds like you're going to have to come up with a fairly specific plan of how you're, of what you were just talking about. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
That is correct.
Okay.
I'll say too that I represented that neighborhood more years than I've been mayor, and that particular street has that whole area has been having grown up over there. That whole area has seen a lot more traffic in the years. I'll say that Robin doesn't get the brunt of it as much as Second Street, and then that Lark or whatever that comes in front of the Lutheran Church should get the most of it. However, in the last since that school's not a high school anymore, that neighborhood, that particular street has probably seen a decrease in traffic for the last 15 years. Since it's not had high schoolers running through back and forth on it. So I appreciate the increased use in that area, but it hasn't been that way for a long time. So that's good stuff. That's good points to bring up, Juan, and thank you very much to the applicants for appreciating to address that. Is there anything else as it relates to this project from the council? Any other questions?
Mayor, I'll just make a quick comment. Vega, those are all good questions. I still think that this is a unique benefit to the students as well as the community. So I'm glad that it's in the works.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? So then we'll see this next month again.
Yeah, Mayor, I would just say for just so we won't repeat the same problem, just to clarify. So we'll be posting this meeting, the meeting on August 4th as a virtual meeting. And in this notice, we'll put in there that the meeting will start at 6. So, but if somehow we have a big turnaround in the next few weeks and we decide that when the August 4th rolls around, we're ready to have an in-person meeting, we could still do the virtual meeting at 6, deal with this school issue, and then have our regular meeting at 7 if that's, I just want to make it clear, we won't have the same problem repeat itself. I think we should be able to cover it either way, and we'll be able to
even
vote
if
on
even if it is an in-person meeting, it'll still be virtual, streamed virtually. Is that going to help with
No,
it doesn't
what I'm
surround the
saying
time
is,
issue?
if we decide to do it in person,
Yeah.
just start the in-person meeting at 7. We could still have this meeting at 6 virtually and
Yeah,
deal with
I get
just
it.
the one issue. So,
I get it.
so
Okay.
it just didn't want you to think it would, the chances of that happening again won't
No.
repeat itself.
Looks good. Any other questions, council, before we move on? Raphael, Mr. Davenport, y'all satisfied with y'all's ability to move forward?
Yes, thank you for your
Yes.
time tonight.
Okay.
Thank
All
you,
right,
everyone.
then we'll move on to item number 2. We'll close this discussion and move on to item number 2. A resolution of the City of Elgin, Texas, approving the development and consent agreement with the Vastra Opportunity Investors LLC, BTR Development Incorporated, Elgin Municipal Utility District Number 1, and Elgin Municipal Utility District Number 2, and making certain findings related thereto. Tom?
Thank you, Mayor. This item is, council, I'm sure is familiar with the name of this project. It's one that we've been talking about for some time, and is, as we'll talk about this evening, has some unique elements to it that have necessitated a kind of a lengthy deliberation until we could get a development agreement that was agreeable to both parties. As I said, we've almost, and realized when I looked at this recently, we've really been kind of talking with the property owners and developers for almost 2 years now about this project. It's a very sizable municipal utility district that'll be within our ETJ on an almost 400-acre tract of land near Upper Elgin Road and Swenson Boulevard. It has similarities to to the other two big mud projects we have going, but there will definitely be some different aspects about it. And one of those is really driven by the fact that this property actually had an agreement with the city of Elgin over 15 years ago, where the city approved a consent agreement that created Elgin, the mud number 1 and mud number 2. And that's why those muds still exist to this day, are still valid and workable muds. A couple of years later, the city actually, with the property owner at that time, reached a development agreement for planned development of the property. But that agreement expired earlier this year. And when the new owners acquired the property about 6 months prior, they had the ability to move forward at that time, but basically would have only had about 6 months worth of building available to them before that agreement expired. So we'd asked them to redo that agreement, and they agreed. So we have a totally new agreement. So just, that history about the project, just want to make clear that this agreement supersedes and all other previous agreements between the developer and the city. I think council has seen this conceptual plan previously. I'll kind of circle back to this during the presentation, but this is the concept plan at this point. It's again almost 400 acres of property, but it's a plan for a very dense development. 1,725 single-family homes is what's contemplated in the development agreement. Again, just to keep perspective, remember the current single-family home housing stock in the city of Elgin today, as it exists, is probably about 2,500 single-family homes. So once again, we're talking about a development that's close to being as big as the whole, doubling the size of the city and our single-family residential in just this one project. The development itself is again comparable in some ways to our other mud projects, has some parkland and open space, some private amenity space planned. Again, these can change to some degree. These are minimum commitments that are made by the developer in the development agreement. This site will also include the donation to the city of up to 2 acres for a public safety site. What makes that a little bit different in this case than our other developments is this will actually be in Bastrop County, and so we'll have a different opportunity as with the other sites to hopefully have a joint use of that public safety site for multiple public safety users and not just the police or the fire department or something like that. We did get the developer to agree to per lot donation to the Elgin School District that'll at full build out to amount to about $330,000. That's certainly not as significant as what we've seen from a couple other projects, but it's important to remember this is completely unencumbered cash that the school district can do with whatever they want, and it's certainly not any funds that the developer has to pay. But the city has pledged to try to keep the school district in mind as we're doing these developments. And then, of course, commitment to pay master development fees similar to our other MUDs to kind of in lieu of taxes payment, which will amount to over $2 million of an unencumbered cash that goes directly to the city. The public infrastructure, one of our goals with these MUDs is because they'll be outside the city limits that we've maintained with our other two, and will be the same here, is that basically there are no cost impacts for the city of Elgin as it exists today. Taxpayers are residents. Our goal is always to ensure that where there are MUDs that are being developed outside the city limits, that we want to make sure that development pays for itself. And that's the basic tenor of this agreement, that is assured that will take place for all infrastructure, both original design, engineering, construction, and maintenance will be the full responsibility of the MUD. One part about this, however, in this project that makes it unique is the fact that over our other two MUDs is the fact that the streets will be originally will be constructed by the developer, but will become property of Bastrop County, and they'll be responsible for future maintenance of all streets and roadways. They'll be essentially county roads inside this development that the county will be responsible for. We met with the county commissioner and the county engineer. They're aware of this, and in fact, worked with us in addressing this issue. But I'll come back to that here in a minute. Moving on with the rest of the infrastructure is water will be provided by Aqua Water Supply. Our wastewater services, as we all know, is the real carrot that the city has to get these developers to work with the city on development agreements. Because frankly, they can, as you can see here, they can develop nearly all other services except for wastewater treatment. So they're always faced with either having to basically build their own plant to satisfy, to serve a development of this size, or to work with the city to access our plant. But similar to all other infrastructure services, for that reason, we make sure to focus on the fact that the development, the MUD, will pay for all costs associated with providing those services, which in this case, in all cases, amounts to these four basic components. They have to pay for constructing their interior collection system to serve their homes. They have to pay for the line, the interceptor line, to run that system and connect to our system. They have to pay impact fees on every home they build to access our system. Impact fees are to offset the cost of the investment that citizens have made since the beginning of having a wastewater system and a sewer plant that's even available for a development like this to access. So they pay impact fees for that, as well as paying for reserve capacity in our treatment plant. At full build out, the Trinity Ranch MUD is estimated at this point to contribute $4.5 million to purchase capacity within our plant, which means we'll be expanding the plant for them. Again, similar to what we did on the Brixton project, where they're essentially going to pay for building a whole new plant. This development will pay for a capacity that they will then own in the plant. But again, this system assures that the city residents, city ratepayers today won't be attached, won't have any cost impacts to serve this development. As we circle back here, what's unique about this development in a couple of ways is what I mentioned before about the streets. The streets inside the development will be county roads. And then we have a significant, I think, a significant issue that we still don't have details on about accessing the property for vehicular access. So, but first, just want to make clear that it's crystal clear in the agreement what the intent for the roads will be, and that is that because I should say too, one of the unique aspects of this project and the MUD that's in place and approved then, that when the Elgin MUD number 1 and Elgin MUD number 2 were created, for some reason the law at that time did not allow MUDs to accept ownership and maintenance responsibilities for streets. I don't really know why that was at that time, but that's since changed. So as you recall, the other two MUDs that we have under development in similar agreements, the MUD itself will own and pay for maintenance of those streets in perpetuity, including all the improvements. But what's different about this one is these streets will actually be county roads. So the county made the commitment and they agree that they have an obligation and responsibility to own and maintain these roads moving forward. But their obligation is to maintain the roads at county standards, which means basically pavement and bar ditches, which is not what's going to be built here. So first, we made sure that we spell out clearly in the agreement that under no circumstances will the city have any obligation to pay for any of the costs associated with any of the streets, curb and gutter, drainage, anything to do with that for as long as the MUD exists. However, the commitment at the same time on behalf of the developer is that the streets that will be constructed will meet city standards, which means not only pavement and streets, but curb and gutter, drainage, sidewalks, and streetlights, which aren't under county standards. So the plan is to split the responsibility this way. County, once the streets on the ground, when they build them, will basically look like to the average person, just like every other city street that's in a development. But moving forward, for the life of the project, the county will be responsible basically for the pavement. The mud will maintain all drainage systems and streetlights. And then the homeowners association in the mud will be responsible for the sidewalks. I know that sounds a little convoluted, but that's the scenario we came up with to get the product that we want, that the developer could accept. And I just want to say real quick, I always try to work this slide in any chance I get, is to remind folks that remember that in this project, the city won't be receiving any property tax dollars, but the school district and Bastrop County will. So although the county has taken on a different kind of responsibility than they have around Elgin before, just keep in mind they'll continue to collect full property taxes from every house built out there. And right now, their taxes are even higher than what the city receives. So it's definitely a situation where it's a different level of responsibility for them than we've seen in the past. And but they will receive, they'll be receiving tax dollars in perpetuity, whereas the city will not. The school district as well, I think it's important to remember that it's only in these developments we've now been able to secure some definite direct financial benefit for the school district that goes over and above what either the developer is required to do or what the city requires the developers to do. So I'm not suggesting that a development like this is going to pay for all the kids that are coming in there, but I just think it's worth noting the city continues to be focused on benefits to our government partners and not just the city. So I want to talk a little bit about the topography and the property in general, and mainly the access issue. As you can see from this map, this is basically a rough drawing of the property in question and where its location. I put a couple landmarks in there so you can see where it is and understand where it is. One of the major issues with that, and I can circle back to any of these maps as you want, but obviously from this is a little bit of an outdated map, but from this alone, you can see for 1,700 homes, accessing the property is a big challenge. And I actually think that's probably why the project never moved forward before. Unlike our other two MUDs, one which has great frontage on County Line Road, the other one is right on 290. They don't have access challenges like this project will have. So this was an issue that took a lot of discussion between the developer and the staff to reach a compromise so that we could be here tonight and recommend that we're ready to move forward on the development agreement. And that is that there'll be the traffic impact study on this property will be crucial to solving that issue. So the development agreement specifically delineates the responsibility of the developer to provide an in-depth traffic impact analysis that will relate to the access and the necessary traffic and safety improvements that will have to occur to provide appropriate access to this property in a safe and manageable way. And one of the things the staff insisted on is the part here in red that says that we believe it's very important that out of the two choices of Swenson Boulevard and Upper Elgin Road, that Upper Elgin Road needs to be the primary access to the development. Although there'll be some access through Swenson Boulevard, but the developers agreed to designate at this point that Upper Elgin would be the primary access point and Swenson would be secondary access point. But what exact improvements and will be proposed and will be necessary as yet to be determined, and we won't see that until the traffic impact analysis is done. Again, as you can see, Swenson is this part. If you know Swenson, it goes right through the business part. The developer, this is a separate piece of property, but this piece of property that connects from where there is a street right away within our business park, right next door to the Public Works building. There's an existing street right away that this property connects to, so the developer has a right to connect to that. And then Upper Elgin Road, which eventually turns into Central Avenue, as you know, is here to the west. We also made a point to include the language in the development that says very clearly that both the city and the developer recognize that significant improvements and upgrades to those roads. I think we all know what condition that particularly Upper Elgin is in now, and Swenson Boulevard, that significant improvements will likely be required, and it'll be the responsibility of the developer of the district to pay their share of that cost that drive the need for those improvements. And that scenario could very well work out in the TIA to say that, for example, a traffic light might be necessary at an intersection to handle all the traffic that'll come out of that development. But that doesn't necessarily mean that traffic light would have to be built today or with the first few houses. So part of this TIA is that we anticipate not only will it tell us what improvements are necessary, but it will also provide a time frame for when those improvements will be required. And they'll be incumbent upon the developer or the MUD to pay for those costs, even if they don't occur for those improvements aren't needed for 10 years. The developer would still be bound by that TIA to make those improvements at the proper time. So again, just with those things in mind, I guess I just wanted to show this map again. I do think that again, it's not ideal from an access standpoint, as we know. Rather than dumping a whole lot of traffic off Swenson Boulevard right onto 290, the Upper Elgin access is a better alternative. But as we know, that quickly turns into Central Avenue. Will drive a lot of traffic into the downtown area. So it's going to be a challenge, I think, still to develop a workable, affordable, mutually agreeable access plan. But we're confident the developer wants to do that, and we're confident this agreement specifically says that that's a required component for us to moving forward. So again, at this stage, we're recognizing that that's an issue. The developer understands that's a major concern on behalf of the city. Yet here tonight, we're not in a position yet to tell you exactly what those improvements will be. The traffic impact analysis in itself can represent a substantial cost for the developer. It wouldn't be reasonable to expect the developer to go through that effort and expense without at least the commitment that we're making through this development agreement. I just want to quickly show again, as we talk about growth for the future, this looks kind of scrambled, I'm sure, to most people, but the council recalls we looked at this before when we were talking about the annexed area out here. This dotted line just again shows 1704. And although access is a challenge, development of this size can spur other development, as we talked about. One of the reasons we kept this annexed area around the 1704 corridor was frankly this exact project. And we've already, this red block here shows a tract of land that is already in the city limits. There's been some initial conversations between the staff and the owner of that property about a possible commercial development. And as you see from the concept plan, Trinity Ranch has a stub out at this point. So we're basically one tract away from having another access straight out to 1704, which would obviously really help alleviate the traffic and access issue there. But just point that out as another future growth issue. Again, this is the concept plan. This is the commitment we're making the developer has the right within the development agreement to make some changes within this, but this is the plan moving forward. As it relates to just our raw numbers for the city, for our current MUD projects alone, once we add this project in, we're talking about over 6,500 single family or home sites, some of those being multifamily, about 6,000 single family homes planned in just these 4 developments, 4 MUDs that are all in our ETJ, but outside the city limits. The 3 we have agreements with, well, 2 we have agreements with. Trinity Ranch will be the 3rd one that are very similar in those agreements. This is another unique part of this project, as we've talked about. It is the only major development project we have happening on the what would be the eastern side of town or the southern side of town. Everything else is, as we've talked about before, is all the other developers want to be on the Austin side of town. So it is a good project from that standpoint, in that it's spreading the development around a little bit. So with that, that's pretty much the presentation I have, Mayor. The developers are on the line here with us, Derek Pampy and Joe Straub. I think, is Derek on? I thought I saw Joe on there, but I thought we'd let them jump in with any follow-up comments or anything I got wrong before we opened it for council, if that's all right, Mayor.
Yep.
Joe, are you on there? I'm sorry.
Good evening. This is Derek Pompey, and I'm with Harris and Straub. We are the development partners on this project. Thank you, Mr. Mattis, Mr. Mayor, and Council, for the opportunity to talk tonight. I'll be brief. I think Tom hit a lot of the highlights in terms of the larger issues, so I don't need to rehash those. All I'll add is, since the term sheet that we presented to you last year, I think what you have in front of you has fleshed out all those details and is generally consistent, and we're not proposing any changes to our design from what you saw before. So the only other thing I add is just a little bit about us. We're based here in Austin, Texas. Our partners, Joe Straub and Jim Harris, have been developing in Central Texas for 4 and 5 decades, respectively. And Joe's the president of Rodeo Austin, so this is our backyard, and we're going to see it through, and we're going to do it right. This is what we do every day, is these large master plan communities, and we look forward to getting started. I know this project, its previous owners, has a long history, but we think it's viable now, and with this new agreement, we're excited to get working and moving forward. So I thought I'd just make myself available for any questions of council, and thank you again for the opportunity.
Council questions?
Mayor, this is Jessica. I have a quick question. What is the time frame again to have the traffic impact analysis available to us to review?
I don't know. Bo, are you on with us?
I am on. So this agreement, generally that traffic impact analysis would be, they'd be finishing up pretty quick because it has to accompany the first plat. So before they can go out there and start selling any lots, that TIA would have to be approved as part of the platting process. So when they submit their preliminary plat, we've already been working with their traffic impact analysis engineer. They've submitted some precursors to both the city to kind of review and to TxDOT to review as part of that. But the TIA, based on the new ordinances, it would require it as part of the preliminary plat. Since council, if you do accept the development, that's part of the concept plan, is essentially a part of the development agreement. So the next time that the TIA would be due is during the preliminary platting stage.
So is that,
do you have any follow-up on that? Derek, do you have any comment you can on the timing of the
Yes.
TIA?
So as Bo mentioned, we've already done some of the preliminary legwork. In order to finalize it, we need the terms of this agreement to be crystallized, which gives our engineers some more direction in terms of the assumptions. So my expectation is to be able to turn that back in a review draft to Bo and the city probably within the next 90 to 120 days. It is a significant amount of work and a significant expense, but it's the first thing on our list that we have to do to turn in our preliminary plat.
Yeah. Does that answer your question, Councilmember Vega?
It does. There's just concerns, obviously. I mean, this is a huge part of the subdivision that is proposed, and I almost feel like, we're moving into a situation where we're not having enough details on the most important part, and that's access to all of this. We just talked a little bit about the traffic flowing for the school district's medical facility, and this one is 5 times as large. And so if we're thinking that we're confident in moving ahead, and that we will be able to achieve, I guess, a level of success with access, and that it adheres to what we feel is important for our traffic flowing to and from, then I guess, but I feel like we're kind of moving into these large projects without understanding the key aspect of traffic.
Yeah, if I could talk to that real quick, or Bo, I want you to jump in here. It is, I understand the point. It is a little bit of the chicken or egg thing, and same thing for the developer, especially something like this. I mean, again, when our other projects, we did have this information up front. We did know what the developers were going to do for access, but they were on major roadways, and it was a minimal cost and pretty much a logical, straightforward effort on their part. So it wasn't difficult to provide them that information at this time. But in this case, the agreement still says that the TIA has to be acceptable to the city, and the plan has to be acceptable to the city. So, Bo, why don't you just talk a little bit about how that process works?
Yeah, I would say that Tom went over it earlier with the language. Again, this has probably been over a year of back and forth. I'm sure Joe and the developer would say it's probably been more the city pushing and less back from their end. But as it stands right now with the agreement, without going to astronomical costs from the developer's standpoint, we feel like we have all the language that's there, and we've gone through all the precursors that we possibly can to the nth degree at this point to assure that the outcome, that the city will still have direction on what the overall outcomes and the improvements are whenever the TIA is completely finalized, and still be able to have an input on what the growth is, and then not be after the fact. The big portion of that, like Tom mentioned, is those upgrades that are required. The TIA will show what that pro rata share is supposed to be to them. Similar to County Line Road, where the city is getting that pro rata share from everybody, there's still the other component is what the city visualizes as the final thing that might be an unknown component there. But you will have that pro rata share from the developer to make sure that this particular area from a transportation standpoint, that you're still kind of guiding that based on the language we have today and everything we've pushed on the TIA in the preliminary work they've done up until this point.
Yeah, Bo, I would just say too that it's, I guess some basics are straightforward, right? I mean, clearly this property does not have good access. I think even the developers would say that. The only options are Elgin Road and Swenson. And so what the TIA is we're not going to come up with some other magical access point or another road. It's just going to be a matter of how big are the improvements, the upgrades to those roads that are necessary to handle this traffic. Is that fair, Bo?
That's fair. It's going to tell you how much the improvements need to be and at what time the improvements need to take place. And then that's the point in time that the city has the input, is to say, these are the improvements we want. We agree to the timeline, but maybe we see this improvement over here as a bigger one as opposed to this improvement over here, and moving around. So you still have that direction and that input council is going to have and city staff as it goes on. It's not a take it or leave it, but this is basically the step with the strongest language we could come up with to guarantee that you are still driving that process of access with the limited amount of access that's available for this particular property.
Yeah, I think that's key. It's the limited access. This is a huge project, and then I don't want to feel like we're being forced into putting a subdivision where maybe it doesn't belong, simply because of access points. I also have another follow-up question just regarding how often does the county agree to building roads according to our standards?
That's basically what your interlocal agreement does. So generally the county, Bastrop County in particular, if a subdivision meets the city's standards, it's much more rigorous than meeting the county standards. So
Right.
it's almost a carte blanche.
Are they accustomed to building to standards of our nature, since they are not the
county?
Yes.
Yes, and some in Bastrop, in those areas where you see subdivisions there, yes, there's developers that still meet the same standards that the city of Elgin would. For a maintenance standpoint, they know your standards are more robust, so they're okay with that because that's ultimately less maintenance that they're going to have to do on the roadways over time because they're going to actually be responsible for that maintenance.
But the county doesn't, Bo, the county doesn't typically build or pay for roads that are.
No, they never do. Not for a subdivision. Yeah.
And, excuse me, curb and gutter sidewalks, drainage. That's why this agreement had to have that split up. I don't know if that answers
Correct.
your question, Jessica, but it, again, and in this point, truth is, they don't really have a choice. If they meet our standards, they'll exceed the county standards, and because it's in the county, they have to accept them.
Did I come at the end of that explanation? Jessica, did you get everything, all your questions answered there?
I did, yes. Thanks, Mayor.
If I could summate where we are right now on this deal, this is you talk about being forced to do a development we don't want to do or shouldn't do, whatever it is. That decision was sort of made for us when this MUD was approved years ago.
That's right.
So right now we could vote to move forward, or we could vote against this project, probably pushing the situation into a lawsuit, and then we see what happens through that. If we vote yes based on receiving the TIA, we could still vote no at that point, right? Or vote to approve the TIA or not. Is that correct?
Well, at the TIA, you have input to approve it based on the numbers and the math, Chris. I mean, it is a TIA ends up being numbers and the math. And so there's only so much that's there. What you end up doing is where the city has the input is what do those improvements look like? Or what is the value dollar? So for instance, like I said, on a county line road basis, everybody is paying their pro rata share from a development out there. The city's still picking up some because it's not being 100% paid for by the developers, but you're deciding what that roadway is going to be. Very similarly to here, you have that ability that you might do that if it be through the county on Upper Elgin Road, how Central does, how Swinson looks like. Those are the things, those are the alternatives that will be available to the city. But the TIA at the end of the day is going to be essentially it's a math calculation that follows a set of standards and rules that's going to dictate to, short of us being out there wearing safety vests and telling people they have to drive down this road, as strong as an agreement as you can get to where the improvements need to happen, which where the improvements are, Chris, at the end of the day, those are where the people are going to drive.
Right.
Mayor, if I could, I would just, I know you know this, but we might be heading down to the conversation here. We want to wait till we can talk to the city attorney. But I will say, if we if we approve and sign a development agreement with any developer, that they're clearly there's some vesting of rights to move forward with that project. Typically, in this case, Bo, jump in here if I'm wrong, but we would definitely review the TIA with the council, but I don't necessarily think it would be something that we can't. Let me put it this way: the development agreement does not make approval conditioned upon the council approving the TIA as well. If that makes sense.
Correct.
To you. So I don't.
What would end up happening is they would submit a TIA, and in this case, the council could submit a TIA that would be approved by city staff. Council could look at the recommendations and agree with those recommendations of the TIA, or say that it needs to change, as far as where those dollars or where those improvements need to happen. But at the end of the day, the TIA will present a finite set of improvements in order for this development to be successful from a traffic impact analysis. So it's going to present a finite number of dollars that the developer would need to spend over a certain period of time, dictated by how fast the development goes. So ultimately,
one other thing, just in response to, I thought if I heard it right, the comment was that the council's being forced to accept this development. I don't want that. That's not what we're saying. From the staff perspective, we reached a point in an agreement that all the terms and conditions are met that we'd expect typical. In some cases, you may consider it minimum, but they've still been met. This is where I don't know if we want to consult with our attorney or not, but certainly I think everybody knows Texas is a property rights state, and that doesn't mean just individuals that own a single home. That means developers who own property have a right to develop them, and a portion of this property is in our wastewater CCN. So it's a situation where I don't know that Bo and I would either one necessarily say we're strongly recommending the development, but we are saying is that we're satisfied from a business standpoint. The issues are addressed, and we're ready to move forward with the development. But at the same time, I wouldn't want. This is why we have it on the agenda. This is why we have 9 people. This is why we vote. If council's not comfortable with it, we shouldn't approve it.
So I guess then the question kind of comes down to tonight is if we're okay with the minimum. I mean, with everything, if staff is okay with all our normal business boxes checked, it comes down to, are we satisfied that potential transportation, do we think that the transportation problems that exist are fixable? I guess is transportation our only issue with this, because that should be worked out in the TIA. So if that's your only reason for I guess pause on this project, that y'all are telling us that'll be worked out through the TIA by a formula, essentially.
I'm satisfied that the TIA system is created to develop a logical, from an engineering standpoint, a logical and appropriate improvements to public safety based on the math. At the same time, I absolutely can tell you that I've seen TIA studies that the council and people didn't like what it said because they just thought there should be more done. So that's
how this going.
Some expectation of what that's going to be. It may be worth pausing on, but I would say this too, that's exactly why the TIA system was created, so that either side of the discussion wouldn't add arbitrary improvements that weren't supported by the math. So so yeah, I think you're right, Mayor, that the main issue is this issue of the chicken or egg, that if the developer is not willing to complete the TIA before the development agreement, then we have to have faith that that system will produce the right plan. I don't, but again, it's a significant expense and significant effort for them to do that without some kind of commitment that's included in this agreement. So, I mean, we're starting to get into areas I just don't know. We haven't talked with the developers about before, and so I don't really know
I know the math equations don't always give us what we want from I mean, I think that even if you do build an entrance or two on Upper Elgin Road, and that's substantial traffic, and that's not going to go down Central Avenue into downtown Elgin. It's going to go onto 290. It's going to go down Lydic Road, you know, and head in towards Austin that way. We're, you know, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, Elgin was as large as this, from a housing standpoint, was as large as this development. And we're saying we're going to do that with two access points. You know, it is scary, but I think that the math will present a minimum, you know, will it work minimally, but I don't see this working without, as even in the first phase, with one access point. You know, you're talking about a 2-lane, 3-lane road through a pasture, through our development, ED Park. You know, that's going to be your only thing. That's not acceptable for one phase, in my opinion. However, that's got to be weighted with you know, essentially a no vote means it may happen anyway. It's just a court telling us to do it. So I guess that's where I'm with you there, Jessica. That's my same problems, but I think our hands are tied on some of that, and I am scared to death of this amount of these amount of homes going in essentially the old river's back pasture. I couldn't have never known that, you know, bird hunting as a kid, that there'd be 1,700 homes back there, you know, so it blows my mind a little bit, but I'm satisfied. I get the project. I get, you know, what we're trying to do. It's very dense, and it's something that we're going to have to live with for a long, long time. So I think that it should be vetted as much as possible. And I appreciate staff and Bo. I know y'all known that's how we feel, and y'all have done a good job. And I appreciate the developer for you know, listening to that and swinging to that some. But yeah, I've got the same concerns you have. And at some point, I'm not afraid to make the courts tell us to do this project. To be honest with you, we're gonna be have to stand up in front of the citizens for a long time on this one. So it needs to be. There's a lot of it about it I like, but I think, Bo, if you're convinced that the TIA will cover us, you know, then I think that's where I have to be okay with that.
Yeah, I'll speak for Bo and say that we don't want to promise that. I think it's
not from what we're going to be satisfied, but from a minimum safety.
We're satisfied that the math formula will add up. Whether or not that at the end of the day, I know you know what we're talking about, Chris.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, are the people still going to think it's a good idea? I know that's what you're struggling with.
Yeah.
I think Forrest is raising his hand there, Chris.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Forrest.
I think my concern is the density. I mean, do we have any other neighborhoods in Elgin that have 40 to 50 foot lots? And if so, where are they?
Quite a few.
Is that
if council will remember, most of the most recent developments that have been coming in through council approval have been in that all the way down to 35 to 50 foot lots. they're all in different phases. That includes Homestead, that includes Peppergrass, that includes Altessa. So that is what the market is wanting right now, is the smaller lots.
So
We've
the
been through that.
average build out is going to be how many square feet?
I'm not sure on the homes. Wherever that would count.
Yeah, as far as the home size, I don't know. On the lot size, you still have minimums to somewhat get there. On the lot size, there's certain minimums there, but y'all's most recent developments in the last 2 years that have been approved by P&Z and ultimately the PDDs, which have been approved by council, you are seeing those smaller frontages of homes.
And that's what the market, we've kind of had to embrace, change that.
That's what it did. Yeah.
The market's wanting, millennials don't care about 2,500 or more acres anymore. That's essentially the short answer to that for us. It took me a while to grasp that myself.
Can I still speak for a minute? This is Joe Straub.
Yes. Well, I'm sorry, Joe. One second, Joe. Forrest, did we cover what in entirety what you want? What your question was?
I'm just trying to visualize. What sort of homes are going to go in here, and what's going to be the socioeconomic.
Well, maybe Joe can help
there,
out with a little bit of that information too.
Joe, go ahead, Joe.
I can't. Thanks for letting me speak. One of the things about the traffic impact analysis, and I've got about almost 7,000 lots under development right now. So we got 575 acres off of 29 and Ronald Reagan Boulevard. And, we have the same kind of issues, the same kind of size over there. And it does not do us any good as a developer to go develop something that the traffic doesn't work in. It hurts our sales ability. And believe me, neighbors will talk. And if you start seeing lines trying to get out that are too long, and it takes a long time to get out of the development, and lead times to get to work and to get kids and to get groceries gets to be too long, that doesn't work for us. We're about selling houses and making developments as nice as we can. I've got another deal off of 29. It's called the Oaks of San Gabriel, and we're required there, it's 900 lots, and we're required there to put a light in, and we weren't required to put in decel lanes, XL lanes. And I met with the county and TxDOT and everybody, and came back and said, yeah, we're going to do it because we think it's the safest thing and the right thing to do. So we've got to do the right things, or we don't sell lots, and then we've got a lot of money in the dirt, but by the time we get the development done along with the dirt, we've got an awful lot of money in it. And if we don't sell, we've got a problem. So we're going to do everything we can to make it work from a traffic standpoint. And I don't really want to get into all the legal issues, but if we can't do a development agreement with you, we'll probably go ahead and do the development anyway, just because we can. We're not in the city limits, so therefore we can go ahead and do a development, but we didn't think that was the right thing to do, which is why we came to Tom to start with and said, we think the development agreement is going to wrap before we can get all of this done. We think it's the right thing to try to go in and do your streets and your landscape and all of those issues and be good neighbors. And so that's where we came in and said, yeah, we'll try to participate best we can. I will also say it took an awful long time because Tom is very stubborn about his language on trying to get the TIA done, and he did a really great job. And it was really, really hard for me to agree with everything that he wanted. But when it came down to the end of it, I thought, well, if it's the best thing for everybody, then it's the best thing. So he did a great job. He hired a great guy to do that because he beat me. But that's okay. So that's what we're doing with traffic. We would love to be able to get out, and I don't know that county road to the east of us, but at some point in time that will develop. We think this is a 10-year project. By the time we get done 10 years from now, I expect there to be another entrance off to the east. Can you help me with that county road? Do you know that?
1704.
Yeah. I think then, and so that would be a connection. And of course, what we're trying to do is make as many access points as we can, because it'll help us. So that's kind of what that deal is. I'm not sure, Derek, are you still on? If you are, can you help me with the sizes of the lots? Are we not going by whatever the restriction, the sizes of the homes? Are we not going by the restrictions that Elgin has in place, or do you remember?
I don't know that specific detail, but just knowing similar projects, we'll have a diversity of product. It'll probably be anywhere from 1,600 to 3,000 square feet, depending on the larger lot sizes. So, we set these as the minimum lot sizes, but if the pendulum swings, it's certainly a lot easier to do bigger lots than it is to go the other way. So
costs us less too.
That's right. So
in fact, our deal over in off of 29 the Oaks of San Gabriel, we started off with 60 and 70 foot lots. Everybody went smaller. So we went down to 50-foot lots, and now that we're doing 50-foot lots, we're towards the end, and we got people coming back and saying they want 70-foot lots. So we're always wrong about whatever size lots we want, but we try to keep it as fluid as we can, and try to change things as things come along. Over 10 years, do I think people will want bigger lots in there? Probably. What we typically see with a town like this, and I've been doing this for a very long time, is you'll go into a town and you do the lower income, first time buyers, and then the town grows. They like the schools, they like the towns, they make a little more money, and they want to do the second time move up buyers. So what we try to do over a 10-year project is keep some of it to where the second time home buyer and the third time home buyer can stay in the same neighborhood, because then they also develop a bunch of friends and they like to stay in the same areas. And so it will change and morph over the life of the project. We always see that on bigger projects.
All right. Thank you. Now, Joe, Charlie Graham lives on Central Avenue, so you probably have to send a copy of that. Yeah.
Listen, I'm president of the rodeo. Doc Graham's on my butt all the time. He'll call us at 7 o'clock in the morning and wonder what's going on with the rodeo. So it's my third year as president of the rodeo.
That's going to be your new neighbor, so congratulations.
Oh, thanks.
Moving forward, does the staff have any, council have any other questions as far as the system?
I guess one more question, Chris.
Okay.
Sorry.
Just a minute.
Sorry.
Put that other map back on of the yellow.
The property.
Yeah, the one, the big one, not the other one.
Yeah.
The one, there you go, right there. If I'm not mistaken, Bo, does that property slope downwards, like towards the east, towards FM 1704? And if you'll notice, the Latin cemetery right there on the corner have their provision been made for runoff, to prevent runoff towards the Elgin Latin cemetery?
I can tell you that under law, we are required to do detention to make sure that there's no additional runoff at a rate that's any higher than it is right now.
Right. That's a non-starter. They won't be able to do anything other than what's running off currently right now. That Shell City standards. There's no variances. There's no waivers that are related to that. So that is a non-starter when they submit their construction plans. It'll have to go through full city review, and all the numbers will be checked, and they'll have to maintain that like any other development.
Okay. Good. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Forrest?
Yeah, I guess my follow-up question would be, if you're saying this is a 10-year project, are you talking about phasing these in sections, or you going to go in and, develop the whole piece? And
we will absolutely do it in phases. We couldn't afford to do it anything else. I think our first phase is like 100, and I'm going to get this wrong, Derek, help me, but it's about 160 lots in the first phase. 160. And when we start we're running through that, then we'll try to figure out how long it's going to be before they're going to need the first lot of the second phase, so they don't run out of lots. Because you don't want any dead time in between, but you don't want to bring too many lots on too early, because they won't take those either. And you've got, it's just a numbers game on how quickly you think you can run through
Okay. All right.
Well, but I would just add to that, Joe, look, what you're saying, lot size, size of the home, how fast you build them. I mean, the reality is the market's going to drive all that, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
Council's heard me say this before, but in Kyle, we built 5,000 homes in 5 years during one stretch there. So you might have a 10-year plan, but if you start selling them, you're going to build them a lot faster than that, right?
If I could sell them on the first day, I would absolutely do that. But I've also got one that's going right now that's, like I said, the Oaks of San Gabriel. I started it in 04, and I'm just now running out of lots, and that was 900 lots because, I don't know what the market's going to do next week, let alone what it's going to do in 5 years from now.
Yeah.
Just my response to your question for us, it's the developer always has a plan but that they're going to build them as fast as the builders can build them and sell them. So it's tough to,
right.
It's also why we have to have an agreement on a master plan because it can go a whole lot faster than what they're anticipating.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that I've ever been right. I've been doing this for 38 years. I'm not sure I've ever been right on a plan yet. It's either gone faster or slower, and 90% of the time it's slower. But still looking at for that first one.
And y'all, we're too soon to. There's no builder disclosed at this point, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any other questions, council? Are we down? I'm only seeing 4 of us. Is Brad still on? Just not active?
Yes.
Oh, there's Susie. Okay. Okay. I guess I've got active camera showing. I'm sorry about that. Okay. Just making sure we still had a quorum before I call for a vote. Is there any other questions before we take this? We do need a vote tonight, right, on this?
Yes. Well, it's ripe for a vote if you're ready to authorize the signature if the council so inclined. We're ready to move forward.
Okay. Any other questions, council? Well, I'll entertain a motion to approve resolution as presented as it relates to the Trinity Ranch project.
So moved.
Got a motion by Gonzalez. So here a second. Somebody. I can't tell who that is. Did I hear a second?
I did, but somebody was speaking at the same time, so.
Susie? All right, I got a motion by Councilmember Gonzalez and a second by. If there's no other questions, I'll entertain, I'll call for a vote.
Brad, I think that's you.
Jones, no. I'm sorry. I didn't record any of that. One, can you give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down for a vote?
Gonzalez, yes.
Okay. Cannon, yes.
Benson, yes.
Vega, no.
Jones, no.
Dennis, no.
Arriaga, yes.
All right, that passes on a vote of 4-3. And we'll have to check with city attorney since we didn't have get a 5 votes. We'll have to check the statute on that and see where the validity is. So I don't want to call it as approved or. I'll just say that the final voting was 4 ayes and 3 nays. Do you have any direction before we move on that?
I don't. I just say that that was a good, healthy conversation, and that the developers got to hear all the concerns from council and the staff as well. And as the project moves forward, it gives us a lot, both sides, a clear mutual understanding of what the issues are from the council standpoint, and we'll make every effort to get those addressed.
Okay, and we'll get some clarity from Charlie Crossfield on the legality of that vote. And
If there's any, I can find that out tomorrow. I think.
Is there a reason that wouldn't be legal? I'm sorry. I was trying to figure out what the deal is.
Yeah, we'll just have to figure that out. Mary, you and I can discuss that later.
Okay. All right.
Good. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
All right. Moving on to item number 3, resolution City of Elgin, Texas, approving use of letters of credit issued by Wells Fargo on behalf of the LGI Homes Texas LLC, totaling $1,209,357 to guarantee payment for partial construction of improvements to County Line Road pursuant to a cost participation agreement between the two parties dated September 26, 2019, and making certain findings related thereto. Tom?
Thank you, Mayor. This is council. We've been talking about this for a while. This is the homestead development that's out on County Line Road that's got all the infrastructure in and is actually really ready to start construction. And the last little issue here is that they've asked that they've committed this $1.2 million to help fund improvements to County Line Road. The way our agreement is structured with them, it said that they had to have the cash payment at the time of their plat filings. They simply ask if they could post letter of credit right now and basically wait until we really need the money before they actually have to pay it. The city attorney and the finance director have reviewed the paperwork. This letter of credit concept works fine for us. We're fine that what they've asked for is reasonable and we can accommodate it. Doesn't change the amount, doesn't change the commitment they've made. It basically just buys them, and we've already told them that we're trying to move full steam ahead on County Line Road. So it's not like it's going to be 2 or 3 years before we need the money. But in the short run, it just saves them a little money to pay for a letter of credit instead of having to put up. I think the first payment is almost $500,000. So we're fine with honoring this request, but it is a variation from the agreement the council approved. So we just need council to formally authorize setting up this letter of credit.
Questions, council? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to pass the resolution as presented.
Dennis, so moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Dennis and a second by Jones. Any other questions? I'll call for a vote first.
Dennis, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Gonzalez, yes.
Cannon, yes.
Benson, yes.
Vega, yes.
Jones, yes.
All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Item number 4, resolution, City of Elgin, Texas, authorizing execution of an advanced funding agreement, AFA, with the Texas Department of Transportation for Safe Routes to School Infrastructure, SRTS project. Tom?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. May recall these before. It's a routine process. This is the grant project we got recently. We're approved for the Safe Routes to School sidewalk project. This is just the formal AFA that TxDOT always has us approve and sign before we start those projects and to acquire the funds.
All right, questions, council? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to pass the resolution as presented.
So moved, Pinson. Oh,
Second, Vega.
Oh,
Okay, I got a motion by Councilmember Pinson and a second by Councilmember Vega. Questions? Then we'll call for a vote. Mary?
Pinson, yes.
Vega, yes.
Jones, yes.
Dennis, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Gonzalez, yes.
Cannon, yes. That passes unanimous. Thank you, council. Item number 5, the city of resolution of the city of Elgin, Texas, authorizing the award of professional services provider contract for the 2020 Texas Capital Fund Downtown Revitalization and Main Street Fund Project, the Texas Community Development Block Grant, also known as the TXCDBG program. Tom?
Thank you, Mayor. This is authorization of a professional services contract with TRC to provide preliminary engineering that's required for our grant application for this year, the next round of CDBG funds. Council recalls typically these grants always require a matching portion from the city. And so typically those that we get funded for, we spend up the upfront money on engineering, and that goes to our match. So unlike what we talked about last time with the consultant, this will require true expenditure by the city to pay TRC to do this preliminary engineering, but we can't do the application without the engineering support. And this is a very initial step in that process. We don't really even have the project identified yet, but this just approves engaging TRC for those purposes. But whatever money we do spend, and if we are successful, it'll count against the required match for that grant.
Okay. Question, council? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to pass the resolution as presented.
So moved, Pinson.
Second, Dennis.
All right, I got a motion by Councilmember Pinson and a second by Councilmember Dennis. If there's no other questions, I'll call for a vote. Mary?
Pinson, yes.
Vega, yes.
Jones, yes.
Dennis, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Gonzalez, yes.
Cannon, yes. And that passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Item number 6, a resolution requiring that the city of Elgin provide at least one express vote universal voting system and DS200 digital precinct scanner in every early voting and election day polling place used to conduct any and every election ordered on or after August 1st, 2019, and making certain findings related thereto. Council, Tom?
Mayor, this is an item that I admit we're not totally completely understand it. These are voting machines that are provided. They're new machines that will be provided. It seems as if the state or whoever just wants the council to vote to say that you will provide these machines. As you know, we don't run the elections in both cases, and both counties do provide this equipment, but it's new equipment. So doesn't cost us anything, doesn't change anything. So I guess there was the real purpose is just to have it formally acknowledged by the council and publicly acknowledged that we'll provide.
That we'll see to it that it happens. Yeah, and it's in our contract with election. So
that's right.
Yeah,
that's correct.
It's part of the voter ID mandate, I think.
That's right.
Okay. Any questions, council? All right. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
So moved, Pinson.
Second, Gonzalez.
Got a motion by Councilmember Pinson, a second by Councilmember Gonzalez. There's no other questions, and we'll call for a vote. Mary?
Pinson, yes.
Vega, yes.
Jones, yes.
Dennis, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Gonzalez, yes.
Cannon, yes. That passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Item number 7, resolution of the city of Elgin Texas, authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with the Travis County Elections Administration for election services for the November 3rd, 2020 general election and making certain findings related thereto. This was basically the same thing that we did prior to the election being pushed back. We're just doing it in Travis County, correct?
Yeah, it's your standard service agreement with the county to do elections. For some reason, they're pressing us to they want this agreement in. We haven't gotten the Bastrop County one yet, but you'll notice we don't have the total amount of the cost yet, but our last election in the Travis County side was less than $500. I'd assume council will be comfortable with I'm sure that number is going to continue to increase, but it's not going to be that significant. That's why the resolution says not to exceed it.
Okay.
Not to exceed 1,000. So
only reason it might be more just because of November election, but I don't think there'll be an additional precinct. So
that's right. That's
shouldn't be an issue. So up to $1,000. Then I guess if it's more than that, we got to come back, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Any questions, council? All right, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
So moved, Pinson.
Second, Arriaga.
I've got a motion by Councilman Pinson. Who was the second? Arriaga?
Yes.
Yes.
Susie.
All right, a motion by Councilman Pinson, second by Arriaga. I'll call for a vote. Mary?
Pinson, yes.
Vega, yes.
Jones, yes.
Tennis, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Gonzalez, yes.
Cannon, yes. And that passes unanimous. Thank you very much, council. Are there any other questions or announcements before we adjourn? All right, a little bit long one this time, but hopefully we'll be able to see each other's pretty faces in person next time. Any other questions before we go?
Mayor, if I could, we're going to need we didn't weren't able, because we knew that item would be pretty long discussion. A couple items we didn't include the 5-year plan this time, but we do need to address that. So we certainly plan on having our second meeting in July on the 21st. As usual, I assume that meeting will be virtual, and then we can discuss then about where we're at that way. But we are telling, I assume there's general agreement that if we had to say today, that we're assuming we'll probably stay virtual meetings through the summer. But at the same time, I think we're anxious to get back to in-person meetings. We think when that happens, we're going to be, our new council chamber will be ready, and we'll be much better equipped to accommodate some social distancing and more people there. So we are working towards trying to get these meetings back in person, but we're definitely going to do that until the whole council is ready for that to happen.
And when you say that, you don't necessarily mean that the public will be in those meetings. It still may be virtually displayed, but we'll just see when it gets to that point.
As you know, Chris, we've heard of different variations where the council is actually getting together and doing the in-person meeting, but still not letting the public in. And so I think there's different variations we can talk about. I guess but maybe I want to say I'm not comfortable trying to make that call by myself. So yeah. So any input council members have as we're going along about, do we need to keep doing these virtual? When should we strive to do more in person? I know you feel that way too, Chris. We want it to be a group decision as much as
that's right.
Just one or two people decide. And so I'm just saying, certainly in 2 weeks, we would assume it'll be virtual, and then we'll just reassess from there.
Okay, sound good, council? All right, well then I will adjourn us at 8:10. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.